You've been lied to about storytelling. People tell you that stories are just for entertainment, just for passing the time. But here's the truth. Stories are the most powerful tool you have for shaping your life. Think about it. Every decision you make, every fear you have, every goal you chase is built on a story you've told yourself. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. This is just how life is. But what if you could rewrite that story? What if instead of passively accepting the narrative handed to you, you took control and crafted one that actually served you? That's where pragmatic storytelling comes in. This isn't about fairy tales or feel-good fantasies. This is about using storytelling as a strategic tool for personal growth, one that helps you break past limitations, reframe failures, and take action where you once felt stuck. And trust me, this isn't some abstract motivational fluff. I'm going to show you exactly how to apply this in your own life with real practical techniques you can start using right now. So if you're tired of being trapped in a narrative that isn't working for you, if you're ready to start seeing yourself as the author instead of just a character, then keep watching. Because by the end of this video, you won't just understand the power of storytelling, you'll know how to use it to change your life. Number 1. The villain's perspective. Exercise. You've been lied to your whole life. Every story you've ever heard has painted the hero as the righteous one, the one who fights for justice, who struggles, who wins. But what if I told you that the most valuable perspective for your personal growth isn't the heroes at all? It's the villains. Yeah, I know. Sounds like I'm about to tell you to go full supervillain and plot world domination. But hear me out. Think about it. Every great villain in history, in fiction or real life, believes they're the hero of their own story. They have justifications, motivations, and a version of events where they aren't the bad guy, just misunderstood. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You've been the villain in someone's story before. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. Maybe you had good reasons for what you did, but from their point of view, you were the one who caused pain, the one who didn't care, the one who made the wrong choice. We've all been there. So here's a challenge for you. Take a situation from your past where you were the bad guy in someone else's eyes. An argument, a breakup, a falling out. Now, instead of explaining it from your usual "I was right" perspective, flip it. Justify it as if you were the villain owning your role. Why did you do what you did? What logic made it feel right at the time? What emotions fueled it? No excuses, no playing the victim. Just the raw, unfiltered truth. I did this once, and let me tell you, it's uncomfortable as hell. There was a time when I cut someone off without explanation. I told myself they were toxic, that they drained my energy, that I had to do what was best for me. But when I looked at it from their side, I was the one who abandoned them. I was the one who never communicated my issues, who left them confused and hurt. And you know what? That realization didn't destroy me. It empowered me. It made me more self-aware, more accountable. Because when you can own the role of the villain, you stop making the same mistakes. You stop hiding behind self-righteousness and start growing. This isn't about guilt. It's about clarity. When you embrace your flaws, your missteps, your not-so-great moments, you take away their power over you. You become stronger, more self-assured, and less reactive. You stop fearing criticism because you've already faced the worst version of yourself and made peace with it. So go ahead, write your villain's monologue. Step into the role of the misunderstood antagonist. See yourself through the eyes of someone you hurt, even if it wasn't intentional. And then, use that insight to become better. Because real strength isn't about always being the hero. It's about being self-aware enough to own your mistakes, rewrite your story, and make damn sure the next chapter is one worth telling. Number 2. The reverse redemption arc. You've been told your whole life that redemption is about making up for your mistakes, proving you've changed, becoming a better version of yourself. But what if I told you that sometimes the real lesson isn't in fixing things, it's in accepting the fact that you wouldn't have done anything differently? Sounds harsh, right? But hear me out. We've all had those moments. You made a decision that in hindsight wasn't the most noble or admirable. Maybe you walked away from someone who needed you. Maybe you took an opportunity that someone else deserved more. Maybe you did something selfish, and instead of regretting it, a small part of you, if you're really honest, knows you'd do it again. And that's where this gets interesting, because real growth isn't always about seeking redemption. Sometimes it's about recognizing that what you did wasn't a mistake, it was survival. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I had a friend who always needed me. I mean always. The late-night calls, the constant crises, the emotional weight of carrying their problems while they never really listened to mine. One day, I just stopped answering. No explanation, no dramatic farewell. I was just gone. And you know what? I felt guilty. I questioned if I should have been more patient, if I should have had a long, heartfelt conversation instead of disappearing. But if I'm being completely honest, I'd do it again. Not because I don't care, but because at that moment I chose myself. And that's not something I need to redeem myself for. We're wired to believe that growth means undoing our past mistakes, proving that we've evolved, that we'd handle things differently now. But what if some of those choices weren't mistakes? What if they were necessary? What if, instead of rewriting our past, we accepted that some things were exactly as they needed to be? That's the reverse redemption arc. It's not about making things right in someone else's eyes. It's about realizing that some of the decisions you made, even the ones that hurt others, were the right ones for you. This isn't about being reckless or cruel. It's about honesty. It's about letting go of the shame attached to self-preservation. Not everything needs a redemption story. Sometimes the lesson isn't in changing who you were. It's in standing by the person you had to be at that moment. So, if you've been carrying guilt over a choice that helped you grow, maybe it's time to stop seeking redemption. Maybe it's time to own your story, not as a hero, not as a villain, but as someone who did what needed to be done. And that's real power. Number 3, the brutal honesty test. You think you're honest? Like, really honest? Let's put that to the test. And no, I'm not talking about the kind of honesty where you politely tell your friend their haircut looks great even when it clearly doesn't. I mean the kind of honesty that makes you uncomfortable, the kind that forces you to admit things to yourself that you'd rather ignore. Yeah, that kind. Most people don't fail at honesty because they lie to others. They fail because they lie to themselves. We tell ourselves stories, excuses, justifications. I didn't get the job because the interviewer was biased. I keep failing at relationships because I just haven't met the right person. I'm not stuck. I'm just waiting for the right time. Sound familiar? We all do it. It's a survival mechanism. But here's the truth. Every time you sugarcoat reality, every time you twist a situation to protect your ego, you're keeping yourself stuck. So here's the challenge. The brutal honesty test. Pick one area of your life where you feel frustrated. Your career, your relationships, your habits. Now, instead of blaming external factors, ask yourself, what's the real reason I'm in this situation? Not the nice version, not the one that makes you look good. The raw, unfiltered truth. Maybe you're not growing in your career because you're scared of failure, so you avoid taking risks. Maybe your relationships keep failing because you're emotionally unavailable, but you convince yourself it's just bad luck. Maybe you're not achieving your goals because you waste time scrolling and procrastinating instead of putting in the work. Ouch, right? But that sting? That's where growth starts. I did this once, and let me tell you, it was brutal. There was a time I told myself I wasn't making progress because I lacked the right opportunities. The truth, I wasn't putting myself out there. I was waiting for validation, for permission, for the perfect moment that never came. And when I finally admitted that to myself, things changed. Not instantly, not magically, but I stopped making excuses and started taking responsibility, and that's when things started moving. The brutal honesty test isn't about self-blame or feeling bad about yourself. It's about owning your reality. Because once you do that, you take your power back. You stop waiting, stop deflecting, and start actually fixing the problem. And that's what separates people who stay stuck from people who level up. So, are you ready? Pick something, anything, and ask yourself the hard question: what's the real reason? No filters, no fluff, just the truth. And once you have it, do something about it. Because the truth might hurt, but staying the same hurts more. Number 4, the controlled chaos experiment. You've been lied to about productivity. You've been told to find balance, structure, and order. Wake up at 5 a.m., follow a perfect schedule, color-code your calendar. Sounds nice, right? But let's be honest, how often does life actually work like that? Chaos happens, distractions hit, motivation fades. And then what? You feel like a failure because you couldn't stick to the plan. Now here's the twist. What if, instead of fighting chaos, you used it? What if, instead of trying to control everything, you controlled just enough to keep moving forward? Welcome to the controlled chaos experiment. It's about harnessing unpredictability instead of resisting it. It's for people who don't thrive on rigid discipline but still want results. And trust me, it works. Think about it. You know those moments when you're rushing to meet a deadline and suddenly you're the most productive person on the planet? Or when everything around you is a mess, but somehow you pull things together at the last second? That's not luck. That's controlled chaos in action. The problem isn't disorder. The problem is letting disorder control you instead of the other way around. Here's how you do it. First, stop aiming for perfection. Give yourself flexible deadlines, ones that create just the right amount of urgency without crushing you. Second, embrace imperfect action. Instead of waiting for the right time or obsessing over every detail, get moving even if it's messy. Third, build momentum through small wins. If you can't finish a full workout, do 5 push-ups. If you can't write a full report, jot down 3 bullet points. Keep the engine running, even at low speed. Because once you stop completely, that's when chaos wins. I used to think I needed the perfect routine to be productive. But the more I tried to control everything, the more frustrated I became. Then I switched it up. I stopped fighting distractions and started working around them. I gave myself chaos windows, where I let things get messy, knowing I had a system to pull it back. The result? I got more done without feeling constantly behind. This isn't about throwing discipline out the window. It's about making it work for you instead of against you. It's about understanding that life is unpredictable, and instead of waiting for things to settle down, you learn to move forward in the storm. That's real control. That's how you win. So, if you've been struggling with productivity, try the controlled chaos experiment. Ditch the idea of perfect structure and find your version of order in the madness. Let chaos in, just enough to keep you sharp, keep you moving, and keep you winning. Number 5, the failure rebranding. Hack. Failure isn't the enemy, it's just terrible marketing. Think about it. The word failure carries so much weight, like a giant neon sign flashing, "You messed up." But what if failure wasn't actually failure? What if it was just a rebrand waiting to happen? Now, I know what you're thinking. Sure, let's just slap a new label on failure and pretend it's fine. But hear me out. Rebranding failure isn't about lying to yourself. It's about shifting the way you see it so it actually works for you instead of against you. Because most of the time, what we call failure is just an incomplete version of success, a draft, a rough cut, the part of the movie where the main character gets knocked down before the big comeback. We've all been there, trying something new, putting ourselves out there and watching it crash and burn. You start a business and no one buys. You try to eat healthy and 3 days in, you're elbow deep in a bag of chips. And suddenly, that one setback feels like a permanent label. I'm bad at this. I failed. But what if, instead of calling it failure, you called it testing? What if every mistake was just a necessary part of figuring things out? Here's how it works. First, stop making failure personal. It's not you. It's just a strategy that didn't work. Second, name the lesson, not the loss. Instead of saying, "I failed at starting a YouTube channel," say, "I tested a video style and now I know what doesn't work." Third, reframe every failure as a plot twist, not a dead end. Because every great story has setbacks, but no one stops reading in the middle of the book. I used to be terrified of failing. I'd overthink everything, trying to avoid mistakes. But the moment I stopped seeing failure as something to fear and started treating it like an experiment, I actually got better at what I was doing. The pressure lifted, I took more risks, and, ironically, I failed less because I wasn't paralyzed by the idea of messing up. This isn't about sugarcoating reality. It's about recognizing that failure is just a step, not a sentence. You don't have to carry it around like a badge of shame. You rebrand it, reshape it, and turn it into fuel. Because the people who succeed, they're not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail better. Number 6, the lie that became truth. You've been lied to, not just once, but over and over again. And the worst part? At some point you started believing it, not because it was true, but because repetition has a funny way of making things feel real. That's how it works. Say something often enough, let it sink into your mind, and suddenly it's not just a thought, it's a belief, a reality. And before you know it, you're living by rules that were never yours to begin with. Now, you might be thinking, all right, what kind of deep psychological trickery are we talking about here? But trust me, you already know. It's the voice that tells you you're not good enough. The one that whispers, "You'll never make it," or "People like you don't succeed." Maybe it started as a throwaway comment from someone when you were a kid. Or maybe it was a moment of doubt that snowballed into a full-blown personal truth. But here's the thing. Just because something feels true doesn't mean it is true. We've all been there. You hesitate to take a chance because you've convinced yourself you're not ready. You don't speak up in a meeting because somewhere along the way you learned that your ideas don't matter. You see other people taking risks, succeeding, and you think, must be nice to be that confident. But what if confidence isn't something they have? It's something they built by challenging the same lies that are holding you back. Here's how you break the cycle. First, catch the lie. When that voice tells you, "You always fail," stop and ask, always. Is that really true? Or is it just a narrative you've repeated so much that it feels like the truth? Second, rewrite the script. Instead of saying, "I'm not good at this," try, "I'm still learning this." Subtle shift, massive difference. And third, test reality. If you really believe you can't do something, prove yourself wrong, one small action at a time. Because nothing dismantles a lie faster than actual evidence. I used to think I wasn't creative. No, seriously. I had convinced myself that some people were naturally gifted, and I just wasn't one of them. So, I never tried. Until one day I did, and guess what? I was bad at first. But then I got better, and then I got really good. And that's when it hit me. The only reason I believed I wasn't creative was because I had never actually given myself the chance to be. This isn't about blind optimism, it's about reclaiming the story you tell yourself. The truth is, you're capable of so much more than you've been led to believe. And the only thing standing in your way, a lie that's been disguised as truth for far too long. So, maybe it's time to rewrite it. Number 7. The hero swap technique. You've been the main character in your own story for as long as you can remember. Every challenge, every mistake, every awkward moment, front and center, starring you. And let's be honest, sometimes that kind of pressure is exhausting. Every decision feels monumental, every setback feels personal, and every flaw magnified. But what if I told you there's a way to make your life way easier without actually changing a thing? It's called the hero swap technique, and once you start using it, you'll never look at your struggles the same way again. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what does that even mean? Simple. The next time you're stuck in self-doubt, instead of seeing yourself as the struggling protagonist, swap yourself out for someone else. Picture your favorite movie hero, an inspiring friend, or even a fictional character you admire. Imagine them in your exact situation. How would they handle it? Would they overthink that email for an hour? Would they spiral over that one awkward thing they said at lunch? Probably not. And suddenly, just like that, your problem looks completely different. We've all been there, staring at a decision for too long, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong move. You hesitate, overanalyze, and before you know it, you've talked yourself out of taking action altogether. But here's where the hero swap technique changes everything. By stepping outside of your own perspective and channeling someone with confidence, you bypass the emotional baggage that usually holds you back. You start thinking in terms of solutions instead of spirals. I accidentally discovered this trick at work. I had to give a presentation, and I was stressing. I kept picturing all the ways I could mess up. Then, at the last minute, I thought, what if I was someone else? I picked a confident, charismatic leader I admired and pretended I was them for those 15 minutes. And you know what? It worked. I spoke with clarity, I didn't stumble, and for the first time, I actually enjoyed it. This isn't about faking confidence. It's about borrowing a mindset until it becomes your own. It's about stepping out of your usual script and asking, what would my hero do? Because the truth is, sometimes the only thing standing between you and the version of yourself you want to be is a shift in perspective. So go ahead, swap yourself out, rewrite the scene, and watch how fast things start to change. Thank you for watching. I hope this video gave you a new perspective on how storytelling isn't just something we consume. It's something we create, something that shapes our lives in real and powerful ways. If you found this insightful, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps more people discover this message. And if you're interested in more content like this, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them. You never know how a simple shift in perspective can change someone's life. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's a story you've been telling yourself that you're ready to rewrite? Let's start a conversation and support each other on this journey. Remember, you are the author of your own story. You don't have to stay stuck in a narrative that doesn't serve you. Change the story, change the outcome. See you in the next video.